I gotta ramble on. Now the time is now. Sing my song. Oh, yeah. Hey, there it is. We're back. This is it. We're live. Is that the best damn intro in all of podcasting? You'll have to ask. Indeed. Turns out it is. Hey, we're doing this. This thing's called Campbell's Rambles. Put the X up. It's the BCX special here on this Wednesday, July 30th of the 25s. Hope you're doing well. It's sort of the summer combat doldrums, right? From all this great Aliak news to a real lack of oomph on this summer box calendar. But we do have some big UFC main events to look ahead to. Not this Saturday, though, just in case you're keeping score. But we'll get to all that. This is Campbell's Rambles. This is where they allow a washed man such as myself to speak in circles for upwards of 2 hours, sometimes 3. Thank you, Remix. Love the washed beard look. It's sort of a default. It's a default look. And yeah, creating sound. We rambling. Let's go. This is where once a week, usually at 4 p.m. Eastern on Wednesdays, but you know, we've been loose. We've been loose in the turns here. Where I'm going to talk to you about combat sports, 70s vinyl, 90s NBA, mental health, whatever else you guys got going on in the world. I just appreciate that you show up here on this YouTube channel. That's the deal. All right. So that's what I'm going to do. That's why we're here. Get fired up if you can. All right. Like I said, I'm not all that fired up right now about combat sports. It's kind of kicking me in the bag, but that is my bag, baby. All right. So I guess, you know, you might as well roll out the balls and see what happens today. All right. It's not about the answers that I give you. It's about the questions that you ask in the end and the interaction between washed humans that goes on there. So Max Berkovitz, or whoever, if that's what your real name is, with all due respect, BC, we need a little more inside the box and a little less rambles on this channel. Will, you're in luck tomorrow, Thursday, noon Eastern time. Rafe Bartholomew and myself will be back with Inside the Box. We'll be talking about a lot of ish, okay, from Xander Zayas to the end of Top Rank to the Aliak, TKO, everything. What else? Clarissa Shields, whatever you want to get into. We'll do that come Thursday. Today, though, is where we talk about a lot of BS. I appreciate for you showing up, though, okay? I appreciate that. I hope everybody's doing well. As Rob Thomas said, it's a hot one. I mean, it's hot as balls. Were you guys the only one in a feels like of 105 yesterday who spent the afternoon trying to change a tire on their lawnmower in the hot sun, or was that just me yesterday? Good Lord. Can I have that day back, please, in my life? I guess I learned a few things, right? Hey, Cosmo, welcome back, baby. There we go. I see you. I see everybody. I see Ethan Ross. I'm looking right at you through that little dot on the top of your phone there, or your laptop. There you go. Okay, good stuff. They die in threes. Who's going to be the third here? Mezarod says, smoking on a Ozzy and Hogan pack. I love tortas. Who doesn't? I mean, really, who friggin' doesn't? Old man Dave knows about that heat yesterday. Take care of yourselves. Hit the cooling centers if you need them, folks. All right, put that sunscreen on. Don't be like me. Don't be out there trying to change a tire and acting like you know what you're doing. All right, did the tire get changed? Yeah, but do you want to know the long process it took? No, you don't. You know, just realize I got hands, but I ain't handsy. All right, I ain't Mike Bone on a plane. All right, there you go. There you go. All right. Real quick boxing update from the intangible one from 79 there. Did you watch the boxing this morning from Japan? Sandoval got it done, beating the, on some people's pound for pound ranked Taraji there. I did not see it yet. I know well of it. I'm excited to check it out. I'm happy that Matchroom Boxing streamed that card on their YouTube channel. I'm sure we are going to hit that hard tomorrow when we get there inside the damn box. All right, there it is. Dave, what do you got? I bet BC changing the tire was hilarious. To some people it was, okay? To some people it was, not me. And you know what happened too? You know, I mean, it's one of those things where I finally finished. I got the job done. I took a shower. I was overheated. I was angry. I just wanted to play Fortnite. And then I had to go outside because the garage door opener broke. And then suddenly I'm all sweaty all over again. You know, it's first world problems here, but it was a problem. It was a heck of a problem. It was a prom, as they say. Okay, not a dance. No, not a dance. Heard it both ways. All right, enough of that BS. Yo, Nikki, what's happening? Good afternoon. Hopefully this chat helps you get through the workday, the lawn mowing, the grocery shopping, or maybe just life. Okay, just life, because some days it is a struggle. All right, we go up and down in this life. Sometimes it's real easy. We're on top of the world. We got all the answers. I don't even need questions. I got answers, right? And then there's other times we're like, is anyone going to be employed in combat sports anymore, or only the people that kiss the ring or the dong or all that? All right. But as Chaz Barkley off, who the hell is Chaz? Oh, Chaz Berkey, welcome, sir. 2 drink minimum. Smoke them if you got them. Or tip your waitresses, because this is the time where like-minded weirdos drinking out of WrestleMania cups get together and they have a good time. Okay, they have a real good time. All right, so there we go. Let's have that good time. I did get this in New Orleans at WrestleMania in 2019. All right, it's a good time. Or maybe 2018. Who really knows at this point, right? All right. Yeah, that was an upset from Sandoval, though. Did not see that coming. Okay, boxing, often the theater of the unexpected. So that's what we're gonna do. You want some bonus? How about that great intro? Of course, off the top, Anthony Weller on guitar there from the band Head Change out of Nebraska. Great bunch of blokes there. Jacob on the drums. Appreciate those guys as well. There's a lot of people out there like Turki and Ari that are shaking things up. You know what I mean? I'm sure they're the best guys around, right?
He was the best guy around.
What about the people he murdered?
What murder?
Yeah, we don't talk about that. What murder? Brody Moret is back from Canada here. Here we go. BC will forgive you if you kiss the ring and sell out to TKO. You got to tell us about the turkey parties. I don't know if they used the lotion like the Diddy. All right, did he? You're damn right he did. Will he get a pardon? Maybe that too. But yeah, there is part of me that's like, maybe I'll just go work on the inside. All right. That's the thing. Maybe I'll wear a wire. All right. I'll wear a wire. All right. There we go. This is for justice. No, somebody's got to put these kids through college. I'm always working. So we'll be fine. Combat sports will be fine. But did you watch Luke Thomas's video post vacation on the Ali Act? It will make you think a certain way, right? That the sky is falling in combat. Or maybe you want this. Maybe we're not all like-minded in this chat. Maybe you want UBOs. All right, maybe that's what you want. Well, you're going to get it soon. But seriously, shout out to the real ones in this combat game. I know not everybody can be a real one. I get the realities of it. Sometimes I question if I'm a real one to my own detriment at times, right? Depending on, if you work for ESPN, can you write scathing columns about the UFC? Probably not, for example. But I did want to say, shout out to the people that get it. I've learned a lot from reading the MMA Draw and Zach Arnold's great work right there, and Kid Nate and Axe and all those guys. Of course, John S. Nash is always on top of the game. Eric McGracken, the Boxing Esquire podcast, my man Kurt Emhoff right there. Luke Thomas, another one. So shout out Sean Zattel, who was on MK last week, another one. Shout out to the real ones who are out here telling their truth. Okay, that's all you can tell, because you might not believe my truth. My truth might not even be real, but it's mine. Okay, you can't have it. Well, unless you log into this chat, you're gonna get a lot of it. All right, there we go. Brody, what do you got? BC, I'm still saying these guys can't. This is a good point here from Mr. Canada. I'm still saying these guys can't be successful unless they start buying rosters. They could have signed Boots, but Eddie re-signed him. You make a great point there. There's a missing link in this equation of how they go from changing the Ali Act, launching Zuffa boxing, and merging with Turkey to fully take over the game. You got to get the players. Okay, you got to get the players. Is Turkey going to draw a line in the sand and say on this specific date, all you other promoters are done and it's me and Dana? Or is Turkey going to keep milking them along and giving them enough money to survive? Why? So that he can use their fighters to populate ring cards, Riyadh cards, and maybe continue to build that relationship where he's paying them like a salary to be an ambassador that eventually ends with them signing with him. There's a lot that has to take place beyond me burping for this actually to happen. But when you got the U.S. government behind you, changing the rules tailored exactly to your hopes of a monopoly, and you got this big ass war chest behind you, it's pretty damn daunting. But, you know, I will survive. Okay. We all will. Let's keep it going right here. Yeah. Also from Blood and Beer, this is just the early question taking point. Then I'll ramble. Then we'll take the questions again. With no boxing on American linear TV and the Ali Act boxing is looking like a dark place for future fighters in the good old USA. Yeah. Right now that's why the timing's so ripe for TKO and the RE Act to push this through. Because it is hard to tell people who may not know the exact details, or maybe people that do know the details, because I know there's a bunch of fans. I respect the fact that there is a bunch of fans out there that's like, BC, I'm with you on the box. I love the box. It's a screwed up wonderland, but it doesn't always have to be screwed up. If you're telling me I could get some organization, I'll take it. Yeah, there's going to be a price we're going to pay for that organization, though. Okay. All right. But you're right. Right now it's dark, but let's see what happens. I know for a fact ESPN is looking to get back into boxing in a very big way. It'll depend on who they sign and which direction they go. Depends on where Zuffa boxing ends up. A lot to get to as we continue. I thought at the end of 23, when Showtime Sports was vanquished right after its best year ever, that, you know, it'd take a year to sort all this out. But I guess I didn't see Turkey coming at the full extreme that he is. I didn't see the union with UFC. I didn't see all this. So we're 2 years into boxing upheaval, of rebranding, of restructuring, of reorganizing. And some of that change will be necessary. Some of that change will be very good, but some of that change will be monsopsonistic. Okay. All right. Can we keep figuring out how to say that? All right. All right. Wow. Lazy Bet. Hope you broke your meatball grinder record. You know, I once, are you ref? What are you? Let me hold on. Yeah, I see it. I see it now. Lazy Bet. Thank you, sir. For like super chat's open if you want to play ball. Okay, let's play some balls. Let's play. Right. No, seriously, thank you for the sport. I've been playing that. I've been floating that clip lately, right, of me on the ESPN 2001 Sports Trivia Game Show 2-minute drill. I do have bigger plans to put out a BCX video, really just chronicling this wild footnote in my life history here, in which I did mention so it is available on YouTube. You can find it, but it wasn't available for a long time because the only VHS copy I had, the volume. So basically when this aired in July of 2001, the power went out in my hometown. So I did, everyone that tried to tape it, it didn't work. My sister taped it for me on VHS, but she taped it with the volume down. So I've really never had a prominent working copy of this until my great friend Alex Walkuski, when his mom passed and they went through her stuff, they found a box of VHSs that said Soup's Game Show appearance on it. So he's been nice enough to upload that to Twitter, and I'm going to make a fun little video out of that. So Lazy Bet, thank you for the support. If you want to see a little snippet of what I'm talking about here from my appearance on Kenny Mayne, ESPN's 2-minute drill, here's me and model Carol Alt.
Just personal, whatever you want to do to bond. We
So
may
are you
cut
married?
this out later. No. Are you?
No.
Good. All right, switch places. You have 11 points. Congratulations on that.
Yeah, there it is. There's a lot of heartbreak and wins in that story. We'll get to that one day. Okay. Somebody told me. All right. There we go. All right. BC, some Lazy Bet, you were risen that girl. Yeah. We know it was an attempt. It was a classic 22-year-old BC attempt at glory that, didn't go that far, but there you go. All righty then. Okay. Yep, there it is. There it is. What do you got, Brody? BC was smooth back then. His heart turned cold. You know, I was smooth in my head. I wasn't always smooth on the execution, but that's the life of that is the life. What do you got for me, Jay? Here, bet you had a hot dog right before that too, probably right after too. All right, right after. Zeb, what other videos of you are out there? More than you'd think. Okay, no adult films though. All right, enough of what are we doing? What are we doing here? Right, let's start it off. Let's kick off the program. Life update. I gave it to you already. Things are okay. We're fighting through. It's hot as balls. BCX update. There ain't much going on between us talking right now and Inside the Box tomorrow at noon Eastern, but more to come on that. All right. Yep. And yeah, thank you, Hihachi Mishima. That's a hell of a name. I like that right there. BC the Riz Lord. You know what I call myself to annoy my family members? I call myself the Drizzler around the house, you know, the dad Rizzler, right? Because I got all that drizz, you know. It's all right. Enough of this BS. Thank you. I mean, is annoying your wife and kids a full-time sport? Because I think I'm all pro at that. I think I am. We're gonna get to your questions and let's start it off. So look, I'm really feeling this this RDR movement, the Dutch Knight, Reinier De Ridder. He's here, and he might be here to stay. 4 wins in 8.5 months. A very close, I guess you could say lightly disputed split decision win over Robert Whittaker. I do see the argument for Robert Whittaker having won that fight, while I also see the limitations of a 34-year-old Robert Whittaker who can be hot or cold on given nights in given rounds. If that scored the other way, we're having a much different conversation about the future of both guys. There's no question about that. But seeing RDR make this journey, have this success, it's wild to me. And it's so refreshing to see a largely one-dimensional fighter arrive on the scene. Yes, he had big-time experience in one championship, 2 division champion, fought as high as heavyweight and got sent to hell by Anatoly Malikin, but, you know, had big goals and dreams. But it is rare in these modern times to see specialists, you know, singular specialists so high up. And I just think his very refreshing demeanor and attitude, and the fact that he keeps entering these fights and we're like, not really sure what to expect. And then he gives us the opposite of that performance, meaning I thought he'd roll through GM3 Gerald Meerschaert. And the fact that in his UFC debut some 8.5 months ago, that he looked that badly in a very competitive fight, taking strike after strike with no head movement, you know, center line, hands down. And to see that guy evolve into 3 more wins against escalating competition. Although I understand you can poke a hole in the idea that Kevin Holland can look really good one day and really bad the next. Bo Nickel, turns out he wasn't ready for prime time. And certainly RDR sped up that reveal if we didn't already know coming in. And then you definitely got this one against Robert Whittaker that could have gone either way. But I think what we did at least learn is his weirdness is elite. If you're going to go 5 rounds with him, he's got stupid size for this division. He's got great cardio. He can finish the fight on the ground. And for as bad as his striking is for the elite level, it looked pretty damn effectively bad striking this time around. And that's the key. Forms all over the place. You can line him up, or you think you can line him up with a big shot, but he's got a killer chin. The fact that he got right back up from that knockout blow against Whittaker, and that's knocking out 90% of middleweights. We already know that. And just, man, it's really the attitude. And maybe I feel like I have an inside track on having covered him a while and having interviewed him a bunch when he was with Juan. But I remember those interviews. He talked a lot of shit. He's like, I'm going to run through Malikin. I'm going to sub him out in a minute. You know, and then he got pounded. He got the kind of brutal KO loss that you're like, I'm not sure that guy's going to be the same. Only then they fought a second time. And he got handled and hammered out again. And it was interesting when I interviewed him ahead of that UFC debut against Meerschaert, and I brought up those fights, not to rub it in, but to be like, man, you talked a big game and those were brutal. What does that do to you? How do you bounce back from that? He was like, look, I had the wrong attitude. I was way too cocky, way too willing to take on disgustingly hard challenges, moving up to light heavyweight to heavyweight. This was the sort of like, now I'm in the UFC. He found that loophole apparently to get out of his deal at one without Chatri chasing him around the world and preventing him from fighting. And just that attitude that he brought in of like, we're just going to roll the dice, fight who they give me, see what happens, take a lot of fights in a short period of time and just go for it. And I remember that specifically saying ahead of that Meerschaert fight, like, I'm not looking at a title. I'm just going to go have fun and see what happens. It's exactly what he's doing right now. And that difference in mentality, along with the weirdly elite parts of his game plan, it's wild. I never saw him getting this victory. I never saw him literally being on the doorstep of a title shot and having that sort of one-dimensional side to him where it's like, things go his way, this guy could end up being the damn champion right now. It's wild. What do you got, Brody, here? BC, I don't want to sound like a hater, but Bobby Knuckles is, I almost wore the damn Reaper shirt, right? Not the Hideo Hitami Go-Go NXT shirt. I almost wore the damn Reaper shirt today because I love that man. Very overrated. His 2 elite wins are Yoel Romero and Jock. Okay, first of all, wash your mouth out, all right? I get that because he never won a title a second time when we all assumed he would based on ability, that it may be easy to say that. But let's not forget the injuries and illnesses at his very peak that Whitaker endured that really, I feel like, led to that knockout loss against Adesanya, nor the fact, and am I alone on this? Because sometimes I do feel alone. He beat Izzy in that rematch. He damn did. Okay, he did. But that's his arch nemesis. He's 0-2 technically. You are what your record says you are, Bill Parcells. I've just seen a super elite guy every other step of the way until this recent run, and does this recent run of big, largely one-sided losses against people that went through him and escalated almost instantly to the title level. Does that bring him down? I think there is an argument, a little bit of a hater argument to be made. So I don't completely throw you out here, Brody. But go outside for a few, all right? Go take a smoke break, all right? We're not besmirching that legend right here. There's really no reason RDR should have won this fight, but he did. And I think that's the refreshing nature of seeing somebody who isn't complete. It's not like he's here on luck, but things lined up perfectly. And he had to make some honest changes from that Meerschaert win, which he did not look great, into being exactly where he is right now. And I would like to see him almost sit on the fact that he's kind of already secured a title shot. When you beat Robert Whitaker, historically, you kind of have already secured that. I don't know if he gets exactly the winner of DDP versus Chimaev come August, because there is that other half of the winner's bracket, so to speak, of Imavov going up against Caio. Oh man, I'm going to butcher this again. Bohalio. Hell yeah, let's just call him Caio. All right. No, I butcher that a lot. What else do you guys think about Whitaker here? Dalton Trumbo is here. That's a hell of a name there. Rob is predictable at this point. He hasn't evolved over the past 5 years. He's not elite. He's lost to every top tier opponent he fought. Imzi, Hamza, and DDP. That does sort of line up with what Luke said to the degree that, well, Luke's not going to tell you he's not elite because he was. All right. And he almost proved it again that he is here, but we're seeing some of the limitations catch up to him with age, the wear and tear of battle, but also, Luke said it himself, maybe the game has passed him by. And sometimes that happens to guys before their tank has yet to be fully spilled out. I'll give you that. I'll give you some of that. He didn't necessarily evolve. He's an undersized guy who had a really, really good, well-rounded game, who was tough as friggin' nails. And this ain't supposed to be about Rob, but we can make it about Rob. What do you got, YouTube Gold? Nah, Rob is legit. Remember, this is key. Remember, he's a welterweight who lost to a prime Wonder Boy and then went on to become the middleweight champion. Am I really the only one who feels like he beat Izzy in that rematch? I guess I am. All right. I guess I am. Trumbo, he's very good, not elite. No, he's no longer elite. It has passed him by, but we're not going to play this game where you feel like where we're going to go back in history and say he never was. Okay. Get that out of your mouth, please. Please. All right. According to Sandine, he's transitioning in the midst right now more to a family man than MMA fighter. I can certainly see that happening right there. But it's refreshing to me. I feel like RDR with 4 wins in 8.5 months could actually get off of this crazy schedule, sit on his laurels and wait out and maybe say, look, I'm going to wait for that title shot. But everyone's telling me that MK is part of the problem here for Imavov, that we're just royally underrating Nasruddin Imavov. So let's check out the French mixed martial artist, the 30-year-old. Let's look at the recent run here from the Russian-born fighter who's 16-4 overall. But this 4-fight win streak. So he lost a unanimous decision to Sean Strickland in 2023 in his light heavyweight debut. Then you get the no contest with Chris Curtis immediately after, where he did move down to where he moved back down to middleweight there. But since coming back from that and coming into this current middleweight run, we have a majority decision win over Roman Dolidze in 24. Not bad. A 4th round TKO of Jared Cannonier just 3 months later. Yeah, not bad at all. A decision over a streaking Brendan Allen in Paris. Pretty damn good. And then you stop Izzy in the 2nd round in Riyadh, and you get the performance of the night in the main event. If he beats Caio Borralho, and if he does it with authority, I'm not going to be this person that's going to shut the door and say, let's throw him in the Evloev, John Fitch conversation. Sorry, you're going to have to win 15 in a row to get a title shot. No, I could give him that opportunity now. I'm just wondering if it's better for RDR to wait, or maybe he's just going to keep on. I'm about that life. I'll take on the next big name. Was that Strickland? Is that, who is that? I don't know, but interesting here. Banned from YouTube. Thanks for inviting me to the gangbang, BC. Yeah, it's more of a verbal gangbang, but that's really what it is right now. Okay, that's it. All right, but as YouTube Gold would say, RDR fun edition. Love it. Okay, going to get to your question shortly, folks. Just wrapping up a couple of loose ends from my brain here. Let's keep it moving. Happy Gilmore 2 on Netflix. Man, we're getting some polarizing reactions here. I mean, they're all friggin' over the place, which should not be surprising, because at his core, although Sandler did evolve from his prime 90s, let me take some comedic ideas that I had in SNL and put them into full movies and become this vehicle. And remember, that run was one after another. I know he would go on to do really good versions of rom-coms and eventually really good serious roles. I mean, Uncut Gems is one of my 3 or 4 favorite movies of all time. But prime Sandler doing the goofball stuff, it was always the idea, the perfect example of a polarizing film where the critics are going to call it shit, but the people that grew up with that SNL style of comedy or just love, this type of ridiculousness. And I mean, I'm co-host of Morning Combat. I think I love that kind of ridiculousness. They're instant cult classics, or they were back in the day. But even if we are all that are praising this movie, grading on a curve because the expectations could not have been lower. And that's what I do want to bring up. I had such friggin' poor expectations because everything in 2025 in this decade is just a remake of the old or a sequel. And sometimes, like the Cobra Kai series, it's genius and brilliant, and it's taking the Karate Kid canon and bringing it to a new level, kind of what Creed did to the Rocky movies. But most of the time it's BS, or it's a money grab, or it's whatever. All right. What do you got, Trumbo? Sandler is the Rob Whittaker of comedy. Yeah, I guess we're getting polarized reactions of whether he's ever really had it or not. Brody, I'll let you sneak one in here. Sandler should just act in other movies. Uncut Gems deserved an Oscar. It really did deserve an Oscar. It deserved an Oscar nominee for Best Actor and Best Film. Seriously. Okay. Anyway, so it's always going to be polarizing off the start. My expectations were horrifically bad, because the Sandler Netflix era has really been hit or miss. And even when it hits to a new, it's family comedy in a lot of ways, to be fair, right? It's not his fastball anymore. It's 58-year-old version of him, right? Somehow, though, this Happy Gilmore sequel, which no one was asking for, was largely completely unnecessary. It could not have been, in my opinion, more perfect for the difficulty of what it was trying to do and trying to land this plane as a sequel in 2025. And it's not like I don't see the critiques that people, because you either love or hate this, apparently. There's no middle ground. And, Luke Thomas texted me 2 days ago and was just like, oh my God, have you seen this movie? It's the absolute trash, the worst movie I've ever seen. And I've seen a lot of those tweets. And I'm just like, Yeah, actually, I'm the complete opposite on this. So let's talk about it. Spoiler alert. There's certainly, you want to say, oh, it's gratuitously cameoed. Definitely is. But in my opinion, largely to a very fun reality. Not just having people in spots you didn't expect, like Eminem, like, Bad Bunny, like these type of things, but actually bringing back oddball side characters from the first film, or the oddball friendship side characters that Sandler has routinely employed in his goofy movies throughout the years. I don't look at that as a negative per se, because I assumed this would be awful. And part of that assumption was the fact that as much as I always thought Billy Madison, when I say was his best movie, I mean from the prime goofball post SNL run. I watched that in the theater when I was 16, 17, maybe. And I'm like, oh my God, they took my goofball friend circles comedy and made a movie out of it, right? Like, it's the most ridiculous slapstick BS kind of stupid comedy ever that I actually saw it 4 times in the theater. Owned it on DVD and VHS. But the thing that I'm disappointed in is, I told you this, when I go back to rewatch that nowadays, I'm like, damn, that movie doesn't hold up. That is goofy for the sake of being goofy, and it's yeesh. So I'd come around to really believe that if you're going to go revisit the prime canon of Sandler, Happy Gilmore is the best one. It really is. It really does capture a faux pseudo sports movie with some of those tropes, but through the lens of this goofball comedy thing. And it just was perfect. It hit everybody, whether you're a huge fan of that or not, or whether you go, yeah, man, that was pretty stupid, but I laughed my balls off. So I'm like, what are they going to do all of these decades later? How are they going to make this work? And also, comedy has changed. Sandler's lost his fastball. You're not really seeing movies with that type of kind of old school banter there. And yet he perfectly recreated the perfect extension, in my opinion, of what that first movie represented. It was maybe the most legitimate of those goofball comedies, right? Like The Waterboy's a little more out there in left field, but was great. Some of those, you're not going to redo Little Nicky, right? I thought Mr. Deeds underrated classic there. I thought what's the Big Daddy was good, but almost tried too hard to appeal to a larger set of masses. The fact that they stuck in that goofball realm and put forth something that I assumed I would cringe throughout. And I have to say, the first half of that movie is comedic magic. Maybe it was the timing. It came out on my birthday last Friday. My wife was still away. I told my 2 kids, they were like, what do you want to do for your birthday? I'm like, I got it. We're going to get greasy pizza and we're going to watch Happy Gilmore 2 together. And they're like, yeah, this is going to be great. So you got the dad kid thing there, but I still came in and said, kids, this will probably be an awful movie, but we're going to enjoy it together. The first half was comedically a KO. They're just knocking out left and right. Yeah, it's heavy on the goofball, but it's in line with the flavor of the comedy from the first movie. It's escalating some necessary and some unnecessary storylines from that first movie. Yeah, there's a lot of product placement, but I don't give a damn about that. It really just hit perfectly. Now, the second half, it gets too goofy. It slows down a bit. It's not all killer at that point, but they did wrap it up good enough with a finish that you're like, man, this could have been and should have been so much worse. But instead, I laughed my face off. I mean, I don't really laugh out loud at much these days, right? Besides my own jokes and Luke Thomas farting on air at Morning Combat, right? But I mean, I LOL'd the crap out of that. Great dad moment, great movie. So when I hear people say, and I saw a lot of it, oh my God, that's the worst movie of all time. I'm like, maybe you just don't understand that style of comedy. Maybe it's not yours. It's like as a kid when everybody's like, you got to watch Monty Python. It's the greatest thing ever. And then you put it on. I'm like, not really relating to that comedy so well. This is my wheelhouse of post SNL comedy in the 1990s of being a turd age dirtbag. And he recaptured that magic. And I actually really liked that he found parts for his 2 daughters and his wife. I liked that it was almost this, like, and he got paid through the ass by Netflix, something like 275 million. But this really was both like part passion project, part he actually wanted to land the plane on the sequel and put the storylines to rest. Oh, and it was like this full circle celebration. Let me bring my friends and family in it. I think I can rewatch this like 4 or 5 more times. That's just me, though. There's your review right there. Take it or leave it. Cosmo, solid movie, not a classic, but entertaining. Yeah. So, I mean, God, were we trying to? You can't have a classic Sandler movie in this realm. They're all going to be sort of these hit or miss goofball ones, but this was so hit on the goofball meter that maybe you just don't like comedy if you don't like this. I don't know. Okay. Naked Gun will actually, I think, will be really good. I had questions about it. Then I saw Liam Neeson and Pam Anderson on the Today Show talking about it, and then they're all getting handsy on their own relationship in real life. And I don't know, something triggered that I'm like, he actually might be the one that can do this. He's underrated comedically. It's gonna lot to fill up Leslie Nielsen's shoes at this point in this type of realm. But all right. Cosmo knows. Yeah, critics hated the Blues Brothers. They don't understand comedy. There's different lanes in comedy for sure. I mean, some people go see Joe Rogan live and they love it. You know what I mean? And although the rest of us watch that Netflix special and we're like, see you at the Waterbury Open this week. Speaking of Waterbury, when Happy Gilmore won, had Waterbury only in there under the name of the Waterbury Open Golf Tournament. It was sort of like, oh, that's crazy. I, was born in Waterbury, Connecticut. I grew up next to it. I spent most of my time there. I worked in there. It's a hellaciously bad city, but it's, near where I come from. I really liked as well. I'm a Connecticut guy, so I guess I would have to, that for the sequel, they did lean into Waterbury, Connecticut and had a bunch of references, a bunch of subtle references throughout of the area, including Stop and Shop, the grocery store, where I, of course, worked in my college years. So there you go with that. All right. Yeah, there is hope on this Naked Gun. There is hope, once again, for these type of films, okay? What do you got banned from VT? Lego sequels are bad and have rarely hit, so my expectations for Happy Gilmore were lower than low, and I enjoyed the movie because of its cameo fan service. That's the final point there, and I saw a lot of people saying the fan service part was a negative. These gratuitous reloads, they're only going to be successful if you go the fan service route. The thing is, he nailed the fan service part of it. Bringing back all these old people and reprising their roles, Kevin Nealon, like all of them. It was wonderful. Sorry, it really was. It reminded me, even though I don't love that movie as much now after rewatching it a bunch, and then after episodes 8 and 9 really compounded the fact that I don't like ultimately where that trilogy went. When Star Wars Episode 7 came back and it was 1000% about fan service, and it was only about repairing those holes in our heart that George Lucas had, gouged in with the hammer and nail with the first 3 prequels. There was that feeling in the theater like, oh my God, this is exactly what I needed. I laughed, I cried, I cheered, things I don't do in movie theaters. I really did. It was like this. I was also pretty drunk too, but that's another story. All right. Thank you very much. From Zach Taylor, is Kevin Nealon a sleeper top 5 stoner? He's pretty hilarious and always has been in his career. I don't know about his stone habits, but that's pretty hilarious. All right. Oh yeah. Shooter. Tell him Luke Backman, Shooter. Absolutely incredible. As well in there. Everybody was. The only thing they didn't bring back was that homeless caddy. I would have liked to see that guy brought back. Is he still alive? A lot of other great parts of that film. All right, that's one thing right there. Reggie, thank you, Andrew Nats, for always shouting him out. So he's upstairs. He's chilling. He's chilling right now. He's probably actually last time I saw him was in the bathroom window there in the basement, looking out at the squirrels running by. He'll probably be in here. And he's probably going to scream at me to play with the stick. The stick is that kid's life. Okay. And I've grown to respect that. What do you got, Chaz? The one thing you have to give Sandler is that he always brought his friends with him, which I think is awesome. I respect that loyalty, except for that one dude that ended up touching kids or something gross. And now that guy's out of the loop. That one guy that he was one of those Cajuns in the football movie. All right. I think you know what I'm talking about. Whatever. Yeah. Gas station ass. I mean, do you expect differently from this podcast? Okay. Would you? Yeah, I'd caddy Happy Gilmore there, Andrew Nance, and that was Big Papa, Key Papa. Love it. Live by the stick, die by the stick. Quote the lazy bed nevermore. All right. The other thing I wanted to bring up is I haven't watched it all, but also on Netflix. Didn't mean for this to turn out to be a Netflix commercial. I guess we're gonna have to talk about Canelo Crawford next, right? I did watch WWE Uneal. I only watched the first episode. I read reviews on the whole series. I'm torn. This will be quick because I know not all of you get down in this, and I don't watch today's wrestling product unless 86 people are texting me that I need to. But for the direction WWE has gone lately, they're very TKO. They're very TKO. From the mishandling completely of the Cena heel turn, from Rock not showing up at Mania to Travis Scott just out of that whole storyline, and then you find out, oh, that's Ari reps him, so that's why he was forced in unnecessarily. I had really low expectations. And some of it, and so if you don't know, WWE Uneal is this new documentary series behind the scenes where WWE is really opening up the back door. They're really letting you in to see how the sausage is made. Not all of it, but close to it. They're giving you time in the writer's room. They're giving you the reactions in gorilla position afterwards. They're showing you, they're connecting some of the dots on things that you assumed. Like it seems like the referee's got an earpiece and is always kind of listening and talk. Like, they kind of fill that in. I assumed I really wouldn't like it. And Monzo, and shout out to Antonio Monzo, he's always on top of it. Yeah, there's too much advertising in the ring. There's too much TKO right now. It's pissing, just like it's pissing off UFC fans for it being the Walmart now of combat sports. That's what WWE is, and that's what they're going to try to do for boxing too. Okay, so if you like your combat sports with different flavors, then maybe you don't want this Ali act to go through and TKO to walk in and monopolize boxing. Story for another day. I came into this WWE Uneal thinking this is too much. While I expect to be entertained, because these days the WWE crew that does their documentaries, that does this type of stuff, they're all top shelf. And a lot of those people came from ESPN. And I worked with a bunch of those people at ESPN at a time when ESPN was, for the first time, kind of almost partnering up with WWE and doing coverage ahead of big events. And I was a big part of the internet page getting launched, ESPN.com/WWE in 2016, back in the day. So I'll give those guys credit because this is very well done. But the concept to me, it's a little bit too far. Meaning, look, it's not the 1980s anymore. They're not going to pretend it's real, nor should they. So let's get that out of the way. But if you're an old school fan of wrestling, of pro wrestling, and not sports frickin' entertainment, then you could argue that WWE has already gone, and Vince is the culprit here, way too far in going above and beyond to show you that it's fake. We all know that it's fake. None of us are stupid, but there's a difference between all of us knowing that and how they present things. And I thought the same shitty booking that Vince was doing in 2019, 2020, that took me away from this, because it was an insult to somebody that's actually watching every piece of content they put out, because the stories don't make sense. So you're like, why am I here? I also felt like my critiques during those years when I was a pro wrestling journalist or podcaster, or whatever you want to call it, was you're not doing enough to act on screen like it's fake, like it's real. And that should be the point, in my opinion. No one's under the belief that it's not, but you should always be in the business of trying to convince us that it is. It's just like if you're watching a horror movie, do you want them to look at the camera tongue in cheek and reveal the fourth wall? No, like be really scary and make us pause time and believe when we're watching this that it is real. I've always argued that they should do more on those broadcasts to play it up as a real sport, as a real fight, all that stuff, whatever. This is the exact opposite of it. Now, it's separate from the broadcast. It's a separate thing. But I feared coming in that it's that you're showing too much. You're giving away the secrets that, even if we can figure them out, or even if you listen to enough shoot interviews over the years, you can try to understand. Even me, having had the privilege of being backstage a bunch of times during my years covering WWE, where you're just like, oh my God, I'm literally seeing how the sausage is made. It's mind opening. It's fantastic if you're a true fan of the genre at your core. I feared this would be too much of that. I have to say, though, I'm just one episode in. I was entertained. I really was. They did a really nice job, even though this type of series is not aimed at the hardcore fan. It's only to indoctrinate a huge casual fan base on Netflix who may not be into pro wrestling to go, oh, wait, this behind the scenes thing, seeing these wrestlers as real people, finding out how the magic is done. Oh, maybe I could get, you get why they're doing it. But as an old school hardcore, I'll tell you, very well done in the presentation, but I almost don't want to see that stuff. And maybe I'm alone, but I almost don't want to see everything on how it's made. And then you can start to ask yourself, well, what level of acting is going on in these moments, because they know there's a camera crew around them documenting this. Also, I hear in the final episodes, maybe they don't go deep enough and into like really showing us what happened, especially with some of the controversies in the Rock situation and all of that. It is what it is. I watched it. I will continue to watch it. I've got some misgivings, but there you go. I just talked in a bunch of circles for a while. Let's get to your questions. All right. Key Papa, Travis Scott being involved in the storyline was the dumbest thing ever. We're really talking about not only the WrestleMania main event storyline, the storyline that brought The Rock back to a very prominent position and teased the idea that he was going to be around for Mania in, wrestling. It was a John Cena heel turn on Cody Rhodes, the biggest babyface star in the company. Like, it was supposed to be the biggest thing ever. And Ari Emanuel is pushing Travis Scott into the mix because he represents him. And then Travis Scott just disappears from it after having a really big role in it. And then even his appearance at Mania was like, what are we doing here? And then The Rock not showing up. Yeah, it's a bunch of it. That is just tragically mishandled. And unfortunately, that's the direction we're going with TKO. That's how they cook it. Okay, the cruise ship buffet is going to taste a lot like what was for the main course of the cruise ship steakhouse the night before. It's all the same food and ingredients. I don't love it, but that's your boy BC. Now, okay, Lazy Bed BC should be Jerry Lawler for Halloween puppies. Okay, here we go. I'm a married man. Okay, thank you very much. All right. One more wrestling comment here from good old Chaz Berkey. In the 80s and 90s, we knew WWF was fake. But it really seemed real. But nowadays they were like, yeah, it's fake. We're going to tell you it's fake, show you it's fake, and basically laughing at the fans. Yeah, that's what I don't love about that. That is where it's about suspending your disbelief. That's what this is about. Interesting choice. All right. Super chat's open. If you want to support the cause, you can do that. Thank you very much. Let's hit it. All right, let's hit it. My boy Joe over there, Run Dem Cheeks. Hell of a name right there. Hope you're doing well. What is your go-to karaoke song? So surprisingly enough, given my personality, my willingness to, sing out loud in front of cameras or at the dinner table to annoy my family members in a very off-tone type way, because them are the skills I've been given. You may be shocked to hear that I've only done karaoke once in my whole life, despite being around it like crazy. I did have a few drinks in me, but here's what I'm happy to say. It was on a editing retreat. Basically, in 2013, ESPN did like a review of me as editor, as combat sports editor. And it was one of those honest reviews where like you have to critique yourself. And I'm like, look, I'm a pretty good editor, but I want to be a great editor. And I wasn't going to say like, yeah, I dropped out of college right at the point where we were learning these skills. But no, so they sent me to an editing conference in St. Petersburg, Florida. Hell of an experience. Everybody in my class, in my conference, we went out to a bar and everybody did karaoke. So I was looking through that book for over an hour and I finally hit it. I finally stumbled into my karaoke song. And it's Walking in Memphis by Greg Cohn, oddly enough, right? And I've got to say, although there's no video to prove this, I slayed. It was a 10 out of 10 performance. I absolutely brought it. I nailed the cadence of his voice. I over and above nailed the performance aspect of it. That's my karaoke song. I'm looking forward to repeating it one day. I'm willing to go to other songs. I can't sing for crap, but I got a lot of ambition and charisma. So there you go. There you go, Joe. Thanks for playing. All right. It was a great song. I mean, is it not a great song? Walking in Memphis? Come on. All right. There we go. Thank you. Brody Moret. BC, how do you feel about people trashing Hogan? Didn't Steve Austin slap his wife around and people still love him? Hogan was just being a typical Florida guy. So yes, this became the debate after Hogan died and the reaction to it. And it's not without merit, but at the same time, it's not without merit to still be in a really weird spot about Hulk Hogan. And I think I'm like the key candidate outside of maybe, black folks who are like rightfully so, like F this guy. But I'm saying I'm the perfect candidate from it because growing up, everything I owned had his face on it. When he turned heel in 96, it brought me back to wrestling. My favorite wrestler of all time is actually Hollywood Hogan from a WCW. And while chronicling his missteps over the years, it was more of a comedic chronicling. And when I say missteps, I'm not talking about the racism as much as I'm talking about how he became a chronic liar and over-exaggerated and whatever. But it's like you still support him for what he brought to the table, but you're also like, yeah, this guy doesn't know who he is. He lives the gimmick 24/7 to a fault, blah, blah, blah. But it's not just now you add in the racism to that. I think it goes beyond that. It was the way that he responded to that racism, the somewhat half-hearted apology, all growing up, we all said that. And, that kind of BS. And when you mix that with somebody who is never showing you their real self because they're the Hulk Hogan character 24 hours a day anyway, and who's already just this shameless celebrity through the years of Hogan Knows Best, the reality show where his marriage falls apart on screen. Yes, other people have done really worse things in some ways. And I don't know if the word is forgive them or what have you. Mike Tyson is a great example where it's just sort of like his personality has changed over the years. His, so much about his story has changed that we're almost like we're talking about a different person from the Tyson that went to jail in the early 90s compared with the comedic sort of heartwarming Tyson now, where you're almost just happy he's still alive and you're cheering for him to succeed in whatever he does, because part of you is like, you feel bad for how much he was used throughout his life and career. The Hogan thing was, I just don't feel like, not that my vote matters in this regard more than me just writing a column after he died for CBS Sports and trying to put this to words, but his lack of honest sort of, his lack of sincerity overall in that is hard to get past because it really let me down. And now the kid in me is coming out. It sounds stupid, but that's got to be the root of this. This guy that was like the closest thing between God and my father growing up, like the two biggest idols in my life, right? But then there's this guy, Hulk Hogan, who's preaching fitness and prayers and inspiration and all this stuff. And it's like, there's always going to be a part of you if you grew up in the 80s. And by the way, I literally came to be a pro wrestling fan at age 5 when Hulk Hogan started showing up on MTV through the Rock and Wrestling Connection at the same time that he started showing up on my favorite show, The A-Team, because they were beginning the hype for WrestleMania 1 and him and Mr. T teaming up, that this guy was just a monster part of my life for so long. And I just felt completely let down at how he handled the fallout of that. And then when he was brought back to WWE TV and did sort of, all the negativity calmed down and he was back in the camera, he was he was a freaking liar. You hear all the stories about him being selfish and behind the scenes, selling out Jesse Ventura for trying to start a union, like all this stuff where you're just sort of like, okay, kind of a selfish dude on top of that, but whatever. So many celebrities are. And then all you see him publicly is being a caricature of himself and a complete over-the-top shill, whether that's selling beer, selling whatever, or kind of being used as a political puppet to come out and, relive the gimmick and rip off the shirt and it's Trump underneath. And even separate from whoever you voted for in those elections and who you're cheering for, it was a guy that you came to find out, if you really were a fan of him, like I was, like so many my age were, that you came to find out was kind of a farce all along, that was leaning, for better or worse, and usually worse, into this gimmick and didn't know who the real man was. And it was a big letdown. And I don't think WWE really did enough to try to help repair his image. They just kind of waited for it to blow over. And and not to mention that when this racism thing comes out, it's on a sex tape that was leaked of him and his best friend's wife. So you're just sort of like, I don't know. We pick in weird ways when celebrities die, which ones we align with. And, I always say about the Kobe thing, like people look at Kobe as this idol, as this model of how to live your life. Everybody's got tattoos of him after he dies. It's like, that's not my lane. I don't really get it, but I kind of get it for them. Well, I think for a lot of us who Hogan was only this one thing our whole life until he really wasn't. And then you got to see how the sausage was made and that he's just human underneath. But, it sort of was like, man, F this guy. And maybe that's the wrong reaction. Maybe it should have been more about, prayers to his family and it's not like it's not like this is some awful person who did no good in his life. But it just made him look like a fake in a lot of ways. And, Dalton Trumbo just nailed it. If you're comparing him to Tyson, there's part of the Tyson redemption arc that is honestly genuine. And I don't feel like there was really anything genuine that came out of Hulk Hogan in his later years, maybe outside of his turn to God. And he was a great friend for Ric Flair during those times. I mean, look, people are complicated humans. There's good and bad in all of us. For as much as any of you that like tuning into this show, could I show you a list of things I've done or thought that make me look really bad? We all have that. We absolutely all have that. But the difference is some of us don't have that on camera. And some of us, when given the opportunity to maybe try to amend or repair that, some of us maybe are a little bit more, genuine and honest about it. All right. That's just that. So I understand people being like, F this salesman who can't give up this gimmick. Kind of is what it is. Also, though, Hulk Hogan ruled in his time in what he was doing. It's tough. It's always tough in these situations, but I didn't mourn this one. I didn't put out the picture of me and him meeting in 2011 when I interviewed him at ESPN for an hour. I didn't put out, oh my God, the impact he had on my childhood. I'm not like good riddance, glad you died. I don't think like that, but and it's really not political, even though I mentioned that. I get where you can go that route. Kevin from Chicago, Hulk is a real American patriot, and that pisses liberal sissies off. I'm also not a liberal, okay? Like, so, I'm sort of somebody who sees both sides as being absolute bullshit and not that far off from each other. And the people that throw themselves into that and are willing to get murky and dirty in that spot, that's really the people I have problems with. And it's always like, if you don't like Trump, then you definitely love Biden and Harris and all that. They're all pieces of shit, if you ask me. All right. So there you go. Take that. Okay. Take that. Thank you. All right. Lord of the Pies, what do you got? Rest in peace, BC. But one time 6 years ago, you're talking about me. BC karate chopped live on a stream. You should know that before you glaze too much. Yes, I did do that. That was aimed at making fun of Luke Thomas's over and above interest in a Japanese New Year's Eve mixed martial arts card, in response to him making fun of me for being very excited about a boxing match that aired in Mexico or Japan or something early in the morning. I accidentally did take that one too far, and I did apologize. And I mean that was not meant to be that. It's sort of like this lane we fall in on Morning Combat. Do I hate Brendan Schaub? No. Well, I make Schaub jokes aimed at Luke because they're friends to kind of ruffle him up because we're bastards on that show. That's what we do. Yeah. So sometimes you can get caught in that crossfire, but I always feel like if you go too far, which happens, but you apologize sincerely, you can begin the rehealing process. Not everybody has to believe you or accept it, but there you go. You asked me, I answered it. But yes, never forget. Okay. Karate chop. There we go. I mean, there you go. It happened. Never forget. I love you too. Thank you, Telvin Kipapa. Hey, look, when I pass, if you guys want to write a column about that karate chop incident, go ahead. It's cool. It's cool at the end of the day. All right. And you know what? Hulk Hogan was good to me in the hour that I sat down with him and interviewed him in 2011. He was. It was a nice meeting your heroes moment. It really was. He lied a lot in that interview too, but that's okay. I didn't hold it against him at that time. Let's keep the questions rolling here. All right. Maximiliano Martinez. Thank you, sir, for your generous joining of this podcast. I was just watching the Jackson podcast you mean the Jacks on Chains podcast with Rampage? Yeah, baby. With Tim Sylvia on there. And a subject came up where Tim Sylvia had slept with Andre Arlovsky's girlfriend. I did not know that, did not hear that. Can you believe that's how the beef started? If it did, that'd be a great reason for the beef to start in a lot of ways. All right. You're saying that like Schaub and Dana, them were Eskimo bros? That's interesting. That's very interesting. Did not see that. Could totally understand where that beef could start and never go away. I mean, does some of us have stories in our life where somebody left us and went to some other guy instantly, and then you're like, I hate that other guy for the rest of my life, whether he deserves it or not. Sometimes those raw emotions produce that, but that's a wild story. I remember when Tim Sylvia was on that dating show. What was that dating show? Blind Date. Do you remember that? And he tried to like tell the chick like, yeah, I was in a title fight and got my arm broken, and she was just like, yeah, I'm not dating you anymore. But I didn't see that story. I'll look it up, Max. Get to the bottom of it. Thank you. Maybe I should get a Jackson chain for the next podcast. Let's see. Brody, how in the world did Andre Arlovski get his girl taken by Tim Sylvia? That's insane. Yeah, I don't know the full story, folks. That's pretty wild. Jeez. Telvin, yes, I did see Happy Gilmore 2. Just hit you with it. Thank you for your support. Well done. I'm going to watch it again this weekend. I'm excited about it. Maybe from deep in the eighth. We'll see. We'll see what's going on. All right. Banned from YouTube is back. BC, honest question. Where does boxing go post Jake Paul, Turki Al-Sheikh? Difficult question because we don't really know how long either is going to be in it in a very prominent spot. And we don't know if even when and if Turki Al-Sheikh gets out of it, because there is this feeling like there is some form of an expiration date on him having almost the university ability to spend at will, to overspend. Like the one thing about the Turkey run in the last couple of years is it hasn't been financially profitable, almost intentionally not that way. Like they're crashing the market for a reason. But will this crashing lead to a handoff to TKO, Zuffa Boxing, Dana, and Ari, that even if it comes to a point where it's now no longer fueled by Saudi money, will the landscape, because of the change in the Ali Act, look completely different by then? There's a chance that is very possible. No doubt about it. There's also the chance, and I'm not going to do what everybody else did in boxing. When Turkey hit the scene and it was like, oh shit, he might be here for a while, and oh shit, he might have a huge impact. Everybody's like, just wait, the money will run out or something will happen. It's a very big possibility, but I'm not just like counting down the clock waiting on that. Meaning like, there's a place in boxing for Turkey. I think there's also a place for Dana and Zuffa in some form. The main issue with the Ali Act and the way they're going about this is that they're having legislation craft for them that perfectly carves out an opportunity for them to cut the line and not just be a player in this game, but be the entire game. So that's the issue I have. But it kind of depends on a lot of things. I mean, I don't think Jake Paul's going to get out anytime soon, meaning from his promotional side, scooping up female boxers left and right. You have seen Nikisa first on the Ariel show when he dropped the hint, and then on Twitter being all for this Ali Act change because MVP probably feels like it can be its own UBO where they make their own titles and don't have to worry about the normal regulations that prevent promoters from having too much power due to the Ali Act. I could see Jake Paul be in that for a long run. And so in terms of his in-ring, you never know. I mean, do we get 3 more Jake Paul fights? I'd probably guess on that, but could be less, could be more. You never know. But the whole point is when and if Turkey does leave or the Saudi Arabian government does pull out, but even within that, there's been some reporting that Turkey's financing the ring series completely on his own and the purchase of the ring under his own equity. Who knows? I don't really know, and we're not really going to find out the answers to that. But yes, I still don't know, even with the daunting nature of the Ali Act thing hanging over us, whether this all guarantees that everybody else gets run out of business, like the pro wrestling scene in the late 1980s when Vince went national, or if this is just a temporary blip and the rest of boxing's still going to go on and Dana's going to try his thing, and we'll see. It's a lot of we'll see. These are monumental changes to this sport happening in real time. Indeed. Old Dave, I saw a Tim Sylvia interview. He looks way different. Yeah, I mean, did you see him on that reality show he was hosting where he was hunting out in the woods? That's his life now. But if you really hear him talk about his injuries and the screws in him that need to come out, he's had a rough run, and he certainly didn't, I don't believe, made a ton of money, even though he was a multi-time champion and a main eventer for a while. That was sort of right before the breakout boom. So I do have the feeling that those guys of that ilk probably feel like they missed where it is today, understandably, just like the NBA players of the 70s and early 80s probably felt the same way, that when in the 90s the NBA went global and everybody was making a shit ton of money. Nikki, BC, they will never pull out. Are we talking about Saudi boxing or are we talking about you on Saturday nights? All right. I don't know. Could be Sunday nights too. You never know. There you go. There you go. All right. What do you got, Brody? Sometimes Brody will hit you. He'll hit you. Sometimes he'll go way overboard and you got to ban him from the chat. But this Canadian brings it. Conspiracy. Okay. Let's see what you got, Brody. The Jake Paul and Dana beef was fake. I don't believe that. Jake and Nikisa are working with Dana for the TKO takeover. Nikisa tweeted how the Ali Act was bad. I could see where you could connect those dots based largely upon the idea that Turki put out that picture of him and Jake in the hotel room. And now suddenly we were talking about Jake fighting Anthony Joshua and Turki actually saying to the Boxing Voice podcast, I want to rid myself of Jack Paul. I want him to get knocked out and be done for, but so it's hard to really tell. I don't believe that those entities are teaming up or plan to. Crazier things could have happened. What if Jake, who's already 80% there, literally takes over women's boxing? If you're listening to what Nikisa's tweeting or saying about the Ali Act, it sounds like they want to go the route of TKO boxing, Zuffa, creating their own UBO. To do that, to skirt away from the traditional sanctionings of the old Ali Act, there's some things you have to meet, some stipulations that most promoters can't afford. Certain levels of drug testing, of medical insurance, all that stuff mixed with, you kind of have to have your own performance institute if you really read the fine language on there. Maybe part of them is thinking, let's make our own women's league, our own titles, and maybe one day it would merge if Dana and Turki were successful at taking over and owning boxing. But there's still a lot of what ifs there. I don't think that the Jake and Dana thing was ever fake, because I think it really helped Jake to play that role at the time that he was really trying to be the bad boy who's coming into boxing, yet knocking out all of our favorite aging MMA heroes. Or he didn't knock them all out, but you get my point. I do think there was legitimate beef there. And I do think Dana doesn't like Nikisa at all from the way Nikisa exited, even though I don't know the details of how he exited the UFC. There seems to be some issue there. What makes it a little murky, in my opinion, is the fact that Dana's now aligned with Ari and TKO, which runs WWE. And then you got Logan Paul, who's a huge WWE star. And Logan's actually more aligned with Turki than Jake is. So I get what you're getting at, but in this case, I don't. Like, the thing that would to be fair here, remember when Turki went on Ariel's show and briefly was before their own feud, which is weird. Their feud right now is real weird. But remember when he went on, it was like, my goal is to get you and Dana to sit down and squash this. There's a reason why that's never been talked about again, because Dana doesn't do that. Dana don't squash those type of beefs. Okay. Dana's for life on there. Okay. And almost a C-clamp from your boy BC right there. So I would have to see Ariel Helwani as a talking ahead on a Zuffa boxing broadcast before I'm going to believe this one right here. Okay. Thank you. A lot of good questions coming in here from the people. Let's go back to Joe at Run Dem Cheeks. Thanks, buddy. If you could live in any city, man, Joe's got the best music questions. When I inevitably do start this music podcast that probably 37 of you are going to listen to with me and Bronstetter, but it's going to be the best listen ever for the 39 of us, to be fair. These are the type of questions that I need to build out on. If you could live in any city during any era of music, what would it be? The problem is your example might knee jerk on 1000% be my answer. If I could live in London between the years, how many years do I get? If you're going to give me like a 3-4 year window, I'm going to go 1967 to 1970 in London. I'm going to watch the rise of unknown Jimi Hendrix in London in the clubs, while Clapton, Townsend, McCartney are showing up randomly to see what they've heard, that there's this magician, that there's this virtuoso that has arrived. And just in general, during those same years, the pinnacle, the peak of true psychedelic rock before it inevitably evolved into mostly progressive rock, in my opinion. But not every psychedelic band was made for progressive rock, so it's not always that case. But I'd pick that. But there's certainly like a few other answers you really could go to. New York City, Greenwich Village, in the early to mid 1960s, at the breakout of Bob Dylan and the Beatles coming to America and all that. That'd be pretty damn wild. Imagine living in the Laurel Canyon section of LA during the late or more the early 1970s, when the Mamas and the Papas, Joni Mitchell, the Byrds, Crosby, Stills and Nash, when they're all out there. Papa Jim Morrison lived in that neighborhood too. That would be pretty wild. I think you can go to specific specialty eras like Athens, Georgia in the early 80s, right? Like there's definitely a few good answers in this regard. It's weird. I've always talked the ears off of anyone in my life, particularly at the jobs I've had. I've told you many times the people at Stop and Shop when I worked there in the late 90s would, the refrain from everybody independently would be like, did you just ask me about Vietnam and my ex-wife in the same sentence? What are you writing, a book? And I'd be like, no, I'm just interested. I would love to hit up those old heads back then that were like, stocking shelves in the dairy area, but they're at that point, they're like 52 years old and they went to all the great concerts in the 70s. And I'd be like, tell me the concerts that you saw. And they'd be like, well, I saw Zeppelin at the Garden in 72. And I'm like, say no more. Okay, let's just talk about this for the next 3 hours, please. There are times, you know what I mean? Certain music scenes. I mean, New York City in the early 1970s would be another great answer. But swing in London in the late 60s, as all of this was going down, somewhat mid to post British invasion. But man, that was happening. And England was really ahead of the game in psychedelic rock, in my opinion. There was obviously also a good psychedelic vibe going in San Francisco during that time, and the Summer of Love and all that flower power stuff and all that. But LSD for days, Grateful Dead there in that scene too. Also wild, also interesting when Joplin, when all those people were representing Jefferson Airplane were representing San Francisco. But I'd say this London scene, and the other thing would be the romanticized nostalgia I have, despite having not even been alive, for that LA Laurel Canyon scene in the early 70s, man. There was something going on there. Definitely. I would have liked to have been a part of that. I often debate of like music wise, when could I have been? So for example, my dad taught me the foundation of what I know about classic rock through his record collection. No one will ever forget the time my dad sat me down in 8th grade and was sick of hearing me play LL Cool J and Public Enemy tapes out of my room and said, let me put something on for you that I think could change you. And that was when he played Purple Haze by Jimi Hendrix. That was when he got out the Woodstock album, which I now own his version of, and was like, we're going to watch this movie and I'm going to make you a copy of this album. He was born in 1955. So he was just too young when Woodstock came around in 69. He was 14, but he always tells that story of standing in his front yard as the cool neighbors from down the road were driving by on their way to Woodstock, and they all gave peace signs out the window and stuff. Yeah, there's something. And 2 Chainz, you serious right here? In Woodstock, in a lot of ways, was my entry to classic rock. And so when you say your dad went to the first Woodstock in 69, dude, I love catching up. I worked with this great director on Showbox, Rick Phillips, who's probably in his late 60s now. And he didn't go to Woodstock, but he went to Watkins Glen, which was shortly after. He went to this and that and saw them all. And I've talked these people's ear off. My best friend Bogo, his dad went to Woodstock. I remember being 12, 13, being like, tell me about it. Tell me everything. And him going, yeah, I don't really remember much. You know what I mean? Sometimes that happens too. But I have come to the conclusion for my music taste that if I would have been born in 1950, while I would have had to grow up through the turmoil of war, especially in the late 60s with Vietnam, and for all I know, been drafted into it, the idea of being, think about it like this. The idea of being 13 when the Beatles hit, 15, 16 in high school, in that beautiful 65 to 67 window where psychedelic rock hadn't fully hit, but yet bands like the Stones, the Beach Boys, the Byrds, the Beatles are implementing psychedelia and Indian music and all these things into their regular pop craft. Think the couple albums that Jeff Beck played with the Yardbirds, where you're just like, oh my God. And then I get to be 17 in the Summer of Love. Maybe I put a flower in my hair and drive to San Francisco, but then I get to go to Woodstock at 19. All right. Then I'm in my early 20s when Zeppelin hits and Mick Taylor's playing lead guitar for the Stones. Yeah, that stretch right there. Thank you very much. All right. This is yeah, that was a great question. Thank you, Joe. Thank you. Telvin Kipapa, I believe, unless we have other Telvins from Hawaii here that are willing to box Staz in the Lava Shack parking lot, bare knuckle under MK Factory Town Promotions. What are your favorite Iggy Pop? So I've never crossed over into Iggy Pop. I know I'd like it. Is Iggy Pop like the intersection between pre-punk and Detroit rock in a lot of ways? I mean, when I look up I'd say that that's a guy that I'm kind of keeping at arm's length, like I'm going to make a run eventually. And when you look at his run, the first 3 albums are all 5-star albums on allmusic.com. So like there was a run there where he was absolutely prominent, but it's definitely an artist I've never really messed around with and haven't gotten there. I've got him on the shelf though, with Rush, with a couple other bands where I'm like, when I'm ready, like T-Rex is another one. I inherited a bunch of T-Rex records and then sold them a few years ago. And then was like, damn, I think I did that too early. I might have to get into that too, but whatever. I mean, I'm at the end of my run here with Joe Walsh and the James Gang. And that was a good run. That was a good run. It was a couple of months of my life, man. That was great. Just Bleed Radio's #1 Dakota fan. Wow. Just Bleed Radio on fire right now. Has BC heard what Ann Evans said about him is the real question. What did Ann Evans say about me? I did not hear that. So I've never met Ann Evans. Talked to him a couple times over Twitter. I know he works with Luke on his YouTube and turn around his YouTube channel. So I got respect. I read the Bisping book that Ann Evans wrote and I've liked it, but I did not see what he said about me. If anyone wants to relay it here, that's fine. Also, Rafe Buggs. Hey, Rafe Buggs in this chat. Well, you don't need to waste your time in here. Listen to me talking circles about endless BS, but I'll see you tomorrow at noon. BC talks the talk, but when the rubber hits the road, he's all stereo MCs and chumba. You talking about Chumbawamba? Where are we going with that? Does nobody remember the soy bomb guy during Iggy Pop's Grammy performance? Wasn't it Bob Dylan's 97 Grammy performance or 98 possibly when he won the award for Time Out of Mind for best album and he played to the Soy Bomb Man, or maybe Soy Bomb Man had multiple appearances during that run, but it was weird, but yes, memorable, like the Fan Man flying in. All right. Brody Moret from Canada. We know him. BC, you need to listen to Talking Hits. I do. And it's not that I haven't. I had the greatest hits in high school. I've played digitally a couple of their records. They're expensive vinyl used, so maybe that's been my hill. But when I finally was deep in the 8th row on the road a couple years ago and watched their very famous concert documentary, which I can't think of the name in the moment, dude, that blew me away. So yes, I believe that I will love the Talking Heads and be absolutely blown away. Dire Straits is another one. I've listened to Dire Straits a lot, but I've never really gone album by album, and I really want to. That's another band too that I think I'm going to be blown away on. My dad played the Brothers in Arms album all the time when I was growing up, and I did follow them after that, but I want to get into that 70s core as well. I'm with you on that. Old Man Dave. Oh man, I can't wait for the music podcast. They could almost just pick a good album or band and wax poetically on it for 2 hours. Yeah, that's where I get down. I mean, I'm talking to myself usually, waxing poetically on this. Maybe you guys should join, all 37 of you. All right. Yeah, there you go. BC and Rafe, I have a crazy. Rafe's not even in this. Is he? Oh, he's in this. I have a crazy idea. Tim Zoo versus TKO's King Callum Walsh. By the way, you got to feel like King Callum Walsh is going to get a featured fight on this Canelo Bud undercard. Like it's coming, right? Like if that guy's probably going to be the first guy to fight for a Zuffa boxing title, probably, right? Probably. We'll see. But that is an interesting fight right now with Zoo coming down a bit, maybe for good, and Walsh trying to climb. But I don't know. I mean, it's going to be interesting which fighters are going to jump ship early and when they're available, when they're free to do it, and sign with Turki /TKO. My biggest question right now is Turki going to keep populating Riyadh season and Ring Magazine cards with all of the other promoters? And is he never going to stop that and give Dana White the time to really build up this prospect league? Or is there going to come an opening day where TKO is like, we got our belts today. King Callum Walsh, you're fighting for our first belt. I don't know what's going to happen on there. I don't know. Yeah, big fan of Rafe Bugs being in his house. Always, folks. Okay, noon tomorrow. We're gonna get down. We're gonna get down on the box. We're gonna get in the box. Actually, the two of us at the same time, right? Just Bleed Radio's #1 Dakota fan is back. You'll have to listen to the interview, BC, only available on Just Bleed Radio. All right. Are you walking me into a trap where this guy's just going to slam me? Yeah. What did Evans say? That's the question. Well, I guess we'll have to tune into the JBR. Interesting that they had Ann Evans on the Just Bleed Radio before this guy. This guy. I mean, if it wasn't so hot in here, I'd be wearing this fantastic hat here from JBR from Just Bleed Radio. All right. Is that how you wear it? Yeah, there you go. I mean, this is some of the finest details on the inside, by the way. I'm gonna snow blow in this winter. It's gonna be fantastic. Somebody should get blown in that hat, right? You know what I mean? Yeah, okay. All right. What do you got, Dave? I was blown away by Dire Straits' greatest. Yeah, Dire Straits a great ass band with Mark Knopfler being one of the best guitarist players of all time. Doesn't play with a pick. We all know Sultans of Swing live could change your life. Hall & Oates had some bangers. Yeah, Hall & Oates did have some sneaky bangers, but they're definitely overall lame. Somebody's got to be honest about that, okay? Thank you. King Callum Walsh can crack. Yeah, he can punch. Kick and punch. And he's dating Tabitha. He's pretty much winning at life. I have no problems with King Callum Walsh. I've called one of his fights. I've interviewed him a bunch. Good kid. Is he an elite 54? I don't believe that. I believe he's going to have to really earn that and show us. But against this sort of secondary level of competition that he's been blowing away, there's some things to like there. I mean, Freddie Roach, I don't think would be training him and be a part of this big push if he had nothing. He's very cool under pressure. There's a presence to him that is different when you climb. So it's time. We do have to see him against, I'd love to see him against a guy who's also promoted by Tom Loeffler, Sergey Boachuk. I'd love to see him, as a test. We'll see. Yeah, Hall & Oates had soul. Look, they're talented, but they also were in a cheese era and they played into that cheese, okay? But they'll bang. Rich girl can bang. Zach Taylor knows, all right? They can bang. I'm not going to, you want to rock out in your car in the summer with, windows down, you can do that. That's fine. All right. Chaz Berkey. BC, thoughts on Nate calling out Max for the BMF? I got to say it. I don't hate this. I didn't see it coming. I'm not under an illusion that Nate's going to win this fight. I'm not. But, I mean, in reality, Connor's back in the testing pool. Could Nate Connor 3 be on the White House lawn for all we know? I mean, I guess it's possible. But Nate typically likes to get a fight in him to set him up for a bigger fight. I don't expect him to really have much anymore at this age. But if this division is crowded, and it is at lightweight where Max now operates, and if Max needs another fun main event, I don't hate this one. I think it would be an interesting matchup. I think it would be a fun build. I think it would be fun to watch. I'm not under an illusion that Nate's going to win this fight, but he's going to have a couple moments and then he's going to lose on cuts. Let's be fair. Okay. I don't hate it. And I know a lot of people hate it and I get it, but I don't hate it. I don't hate it. There's a love-hate with Nate. There's always been with me where most people just love him, but yeah. I mean, he told me awful lot on that tour, on the Masvidal tour, but whatever. All right. Brody, BC, I have a crazy idea that the world. Oh, you hit the bet already. Thank you, sir. I don't think they'd do that though. I think they'd be too smart to put Zoo in there against him, unless they had signed Tim Zoo too, and it was for the TKO championship, and they're just hoping that he's past it and that Callum can overtake that. I mean, I know that's a hope and a wish that Zoo still has it when he's showing you that he doesn't as much anymore, but I still think he's a higher class than Callum Walsh at this point. Just my take right there. NYM is in the house. Thank you for your support of this podcast. Whitaker being a living legend take was kind of crazy in my opinion. He is his generation's Rich Frank. Oh, that's a sobering, but also understandable thought. Good former champ, but not an all-time great legend. I wonder if I did affix that to him too early, calling him that like 4 fights ago. Still under the belief that he's going to get back into a title fight, which he hasn't done since the Adesanya rematch loss, which I thought he won. Yeah, I mean, this is sobering. I think he's better than the totality of his wins and losses, but maybe you guys are sobering me up to the whole thing of like living legend. He was a very good fighter at his peak. He couldn't recapture that peak, although to be fair, outside of the one-sided losses to DDP and then Hamzat and then this close loss, he's handled the step-up elite ones he's needed to keep getting back into title position, and he's been a better fighter than all of those guys consistently. But you're right. So was Rich Franklin, too. A former champion who for a peak was on top and the best in the game, but ran into others multiple times. Ran into, maybe Silva is his Izzy to some degree. Yeah, I know. Maybe I'm sobering up too. He's just one of my favorite fighters ever. And it's really the way the blood and guts way that he handles himself. He's so honest about the game. He's just, I mean, the two Romero fights, even though I thought he lost the second one, to be fair, very close fight. I just have so much respect for his ability against that guy who we were that version of Romero was so damn dangerous, right? That was right around the time he had killed both Rockhold and Weidman. And for Whitaker to stand through that and stand tall, I guess you're right. I guess if what he would have needed that win over Izzy in the second fight to get a second reign. And even if he would have lost to Izzy in the trilogy eventually, maybe short of that, I really can't call him a living legend anymore. Or maybe I can because I love him. It's really up to me at the end of the day. But also, Hell 17 knows Rich Franklin was that dude for a bit. All right. He also knocked out Liddell with a broken arm. Don't ever forget that. All right. UFC also from Hell 17. UFC Hall of Fame is worse than NBA Hall of Fame. Yeah, it is. The standards are outrageously non-existent. Also, the NBA doesn't have a Hall of Fame. It's the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame, where they put college, high school, women's basketball, international basketball on the same level as the NBA. So it's murky. I always felt like the NBA should have had their own. No doubt about it, because it's always weird who gets in first ballot in the Basketball Hall of Fame when it's like, yeah, that guy was an okay NBA player, but we're putting him first ballot because he was great on the international scene. Like, okay, I don't really know what's going on here. Yeah, standards. But what about all those journalists he killed? What journalists, right? Yeah. Brody's got Adrian Broner cooking Jake Paul. He might even take his girl. That would be. I mean, if we got a throwback version of this.
I beat Polly. I left with his belt and his girl.
I have to say, while that is obviously a shitty fight, there's part of me I can't kill Adrian Broner in my mind until his 9th life is taken from him. That wonders if even a fat version of Broner being way above his head could somehow slip punches and be in that fight and tire Jake out. I mean, the build would be wild. Okay, I'm in on that. I'm in on that shit fest. I'm in on that. You said it, Two Changs. The AB Can Man era, he was a dick in that era. He hung up on me on the phone in interviews, but like that era was fun. And I really, 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 really got fooled by the lightweight version of him and thought he was going to be great. He stopped working hard. He never evolved his game. He never got over the fact that he didn't carry his power above 35. No work ethic. I did like, though, when he called out Floyd in Washington, D.C. after beating Theophane. Remember that? I'm a man that likes to do things from experience. That's why Floyd, he's got to see me. That was one of the great calls. I was actually hoping they would fight back in that day. All right. Blair the Flair. All right, let's not go too far. Let's not do. I mean, I get what you're saying. Jake Paul's, yeah. I'm done with the Jake Paul experience. Okay, I am kind of done with the Brian Campbell experience. Oh, sorry, we're live. All right, great. Yeah, thank you for that take and that sobering thought here, bringing me back down to earth constantly in this chat. Hey, Christian L is here. I love you, BC, but I think King Velasquez would F you. Maybe I'd be surprised by that. Yeah, I think he'd F me up too. The guy's a shooter, right? Oh man, Schaub's great. Got his boating license. Oh wow, that's wild, right? This is great. This is man. All those comedians hate Austin, right? They love Rogan though. Okay. Who is Blair the Flair? You mean Blair Cobbs? Is that who you're talking about? Two Chang's back at it. Thank you for your support. Would Manny versus Floyd 2? That's an interesting question. Would it be bigger than Canelo versus Bud? Maybe. And it's not, and I'm not saying I want it, and I don't think it's going to happen. It's a 48-year-old Floyd against a 46-year-old Manny. I think the window would have been potentially more likely if Manny had gotten the title from Barrios in that fight that ended up a draw. But even then, I'm not sure Floyd wants competitive fights at this point. Some people close to him have said that to me enough, like a real fight at this point. But the idea of, would that bring in enough casual eyes? Well, I do think if you had a title on the line, it could somehow elevate it in people's eyes above what it actually is, which is two old guys getting in there, a decade or two too late. Meaning, look, when they fought when they were 38 and 36, it was already too late. So it's not a better fight under any circumstance that what Canelo Bud brings. But I have to say, even though Canelo Bud are, they can only do so much to sell this fight. You got Netflix, Turkey's money, and Dana White selling it. That's not nothing. You have a legitimate historic thing at stake here for Bud to go undisputed in a third weight class in the 4-belt era, while also essentially rising 3 weight classes to do this. So 2, but 3 in some ways, really, because he's really a welterweight, let's be fair. And you have this, I really don't know what it's going to look like feel. So if Manny Floyd 2 had a title, and if there was some real animosity somehow between them, and they really played up the Pacquiao shoulder thing, could it do more? Maybe, but it would have to go perfect as a promotion, and it's still 2 old guys getting in there. Canelo Bud isn't perfect, but it's a lot closer to being perfect. So no, the answer is no. But it's not that far away. It's not. But it's also weird because, illegal streaming has, Aram's the only one saying it consistently. Illegal streaming has absolutely ruined pay-per-view. It's not that this is a new revelation. It's just that they don't normally say that. But to hear Aram basically be like, yeah, we stopped doing pay-per-views because just no one's buying them. The numbers do kind of back that up in this era. They do. They do. We walking in on someone else's conversation here. Old man's telling Lazy, but I have the best thumbnail art and work for BC interview. Okay, so we are getting BC on JBR. Let's go. Okay, let's find out what these guys are all about. All right, Lazy Bed, my guy, Danger Mouse, right, from England. Love that guy. When we had that feud. We had that feud for a while. Okay, there it is. A lot of people killing Mario Barrios in these chats. All right, MMA Fanatic, what do you got? If Amir Khan didn't have chin issues, how would he have fared against Mayweather? Very well. Very well. Additionally, how bad was the stoppage when he fought Danny Swift Garcia? The stoppage is not bad. He got his brain rattled around. They gave him multiple times to get up. He was still on Q Street skating around in there. That's a huge upset that put Danny Garcia on the map and launched him to pretty much a Hall of Fame career, multi-division champion. But I got fooled by Khan. I thought even with the knockout loss to Brytus Prescott, even with, having scary moments against Marcos Maidana, but riding the ship and finishing that off, I remember the blog I wrote for ESPN. It was the night of my birthday in 2012 when Khan had knocked out Zab Judah on that questionable body shot / was it low, and Zab complained too much, got counted out, blah, blah, blah. That, I don't think the chin thing necessarily will hold him back if he can preserve himself, because he had a hand speed. He's the best first round fighter I've ever seen. He put it on Danny Garcia until he got caught, and he even had good success against Canelo, by the way, until he got caught in maybe the nastiest knockout I was ever ringside for. But if he did not have chin issues, if he had a more reliable chin, meaning that it got to the point where even in his rebuilding, and I covered the fight when he beat Devin Alexander in Las Vegas in December of 2014. And that was maybe his last big win where it looked like, okay, he's going to line himself up to get either the Floyd or Manny fight. Now, unfortunately, the Manny fight never happened, but The Floyd fight should have happened. And you do get people that will heavily criticize Floyd and say he very easily could have taken that fight many times and purposely didn't, just for this thing that at its core, it's a really bad matchup for Floyd. Now, the reality is Floyd would have knocked him out, because the reality is, even when Khan was in these rebuilding stages, like the Alexander fight, although he weathered the storm of Alexander's power well there, but think of the subsequent fights. He could be fighting a D-level guy and get rocked, a C-level guy and have to hang on late. Just didn't have the chin. But if he had even an average chin, he would have been a multi-division champion. He would have been nasty, and he would have been a problem for Floyd. And I'm not necessarily saying he would have beaten Floyd. I'm saying a problem. I'm saying somebody with a wide back who can move up and weight and put strength on, with ridiculous hand speed, with length, with a great jab, with combinations. Obviously, the issue beyond the chin was that he would overextend himself offensively way too often and be there to be hit. But style, I feel bad for Khan. Khan invested 2 years of his career in chasing Floyd for it to go nowhere in the end. And yeah, he, cashed in a couple times at the end, the Canelo fight, the Bud fight on pay-per-view, when no one really gave him a chance in either one. But I have this soft spot for Amir Khan in my heart. I really believe he could have been great. Chin is what it is. You get what you get in that regard, it seems like. No, ham sandwich. Khan wasn't whooping Canelo's ass, but he was clearly outboxing him as the smaller fighter. He is a problem for a lot of people. I still can't believe Maidana got up from that body shot knockdown in round 1 against him, by the way. No business getting up, okay? Two Chang's chiming in. For having a bad chin, Khan had bad. So that's just what I alluded to. He overextended himself offensively, get too excited, and would almost square up and throw combinations and be there to be hit. It was his undoing. Amazing hand speed. Freddie Roach, I thought at the peak of Khan's run with him, essentially, instead of trying to hide his defensive flaws, tried to hide it through offense. And that's a recipe for disaster right there. Also, Khan accused Joshua of stealing his girl and then pulled back, and that was weird. As Brody will tell you, AJ said he never smashed. Also, there was that weird masturbation video with Khan. Okay, also, just we need to put that out there. I don't like when Khan gets clowned nowadays, because he had such a warrior spirit to his own detriment to some degree, and he knew how to act like a star at all times. Even when he's down on his luck, he played the game the right way, in my opinion. Tried for big fights, carried himself as a star, believed in his abilities. It is tough. It is tough, though, that he had that. There was that one spot in the Death Star, but it wasn't that hard to hit. You could hit it pretty consistently. But I really wish Floyd would have turned back the thinking at the time that Floyd won't fight anybody with real hand speed, or he won't fight anybody who's got certain parts of the skill game, because he would have knocked Khan out, but he would have had to navigate some things difficultly early on that would have been fun to watch. More fun than a Robert Guerrero, more fun than, some of the matchups where we're like, that guy has absolutely no chance. Great question there, MMA fanatic. Okay. Great question right there. Last pay-per-view Lazy Bed bought, ironically, was Poirier McGregor too. What do you mean ironically in that case? Did you just assume that one guy was going to lose, so you bought it for, I don't know. There's conversations going on, in my head and my mouth between you guys right there. Cosmo Kramer, thank you. Can you tell us the Bernard? Oh, yeah, I had teased that, didn't I? Part of why I love Bernard and why covering him means as much to me as anyone else I've ever covered. Not that I've got a long history of being like buds with fighters. I never really would go that route. I'm not the kind that, even if you'd get their number or some, any kind of contact with them when you set up an interview, I'm not following up and seeing how they're doing or trying to be boys with them or trying to overly bother them. It's just sort of my style. But Hopkins was always amazing at remembering you or seeing you in a crowd and calling you out and or seeing you again and referencing the question you asked him 2 interviews ago. He was a very smart individual, and I never had a problem with the thing that turned a lot of other people off to him was his long-windedness. I played into it. I loved it. Sometimes you could only get 1 or 2 questions off in a 45-minute block with that guy. But, I would work hard to try to take the mic back from him and try to interject at the right moment. There'd be a push, there'd be a tug, there'd be a push and pull of kindness right there. But I was never afraid to sort of battle for that with him. And I think he always respected me and I always respected him. But when I was at ESPN in 2014, this is a couple months out from the Hopkins fight, it was a time when I was an editor, but they'd allow me to write, they'd allow me to do certain on-camera things, and I was very ambitious. And at that time at ESPN, to get stuff done traditionally with your own department's budget, there was too much red tape. There's a silo system at ESPN where it's boss on top of boss on top of boss on top of boss. You want to get shit done, you're going to get shut down quickly. Those who thrive there learn ultimately how to do things the hard way, how to make friends, how to be entrepreneurial within the walls of that industry. And mind you, I'm at a time pushing for combat sports to get more coverage when they're not necessarily looking to spend it, when combat sports was clearly not a priority. And unfortunately, I would leave ESPN in March of 2017 after nearly 12 years, and they would sign the UFC and Top Rank almost immediately after I left and go all in on combat. Such are that. But heading into that Kovalev fight, there was, one of the PR people handling it reached out and said, there's going to be a media day in Philadelphia with Bernard Hopkins. And, knowing that I was ESPN, sort of reached out and said, and this is what it was kind of like back then when you had the 4 letters in front of you, you could throw your weight around. If they ask you to come to a media day and you're ESPN, it's the idea that you're going to get special treatment. You're going to get a special sit down with the fighter while everyone else has to stand in the scrum and try to get their own stuff. Sort of is what it was. But I really had no means at that time to use any type of budgets to get a real, camera crew or whatever. I'm just some backup editor who's ambitiously trying to make things happen. But I don't know if I had these like premonitions or these thoughts that if I could just somehow get use of a camera, sit down with B-Hop in this, put on a suit, sit down with him in this type of thing, that I feel like I could get him to say something that could potentially escalate this coverage to SportsCenter. As in some ways absurd as that thought was at the time within that structure. TV didn't really talk to .com. It wasn't like, oh, we've got this great thing, let's reach out to the head of SportsCenter and put it on. It didn't really work like that. So somehow I bartered with my friends on the Spanish-speaking Deportes side through a fellow editor of mine and found out that, Deportes had a different set of budget, a different set of bosses, where we just reached out to them. And obviously boxing was a much higher priority for the Spanish-speaking coverage that ESPN was doing. So I somehow bartered my way into borrowing the Spanish camera and producer and hitching a ride with them to Philadelphia to Johan Gym. So I get in there. They allow me to set up my own sit down with Bernard separate from the ring. And I'm thinking, man, I think I know how to get this to be and I didn't talk to him about this beforehand, but he comes in and he's intense, but I'm thinking in my head the whole time, I think I can press the right button and really produce a soundbite that could like define this moment and take it to the next level. So I'm thinking this guy's 48, 49 years old at that time. He's stepping up a fight he totally doesn't have to unify light heavyweight titles against one of the pound for pound best and an absolute killer in Sergey Kovalev. And this is not a national story, not even a national story within ESPN, because it's just another niche boxing fight in a niche sport. 2014 was not a hot year for the sport. If you really want to put it in context, it was the year before Al Heyman and PBC launched. So Showtime Boxing, which housed all the fighters that would join the PBC, they didn't put on the best fights that year. It was Rod Salka versus Danny Garcia that summer, if you remember, as Al was sort of laying out the chessboard for his eventual moves in 2015. But when I'm sitting down with Bernard, I could see he's got that chip on his shoulder and that edge. So I'm thinking, all right, I know he's willing to talk about racism. I know he's willing to go in that area, in that arena, but it's not something I'm going to, break the fourth wall and plan with him in advance. But I think I set up the right questions that led into that topic. And then at the right time was just sort of like, Bernard, you're not only going for more boxing history, always looking to set more records at 47, 48, becoming the oldest unified champion, all this stuff. You're going against this undefeated killer. And nobody's talking about it. Why is this story not getting the respect that it deserves? And I, didn't necessarily know what he was going to say, but I knew he was going to give me something good. And he just looks at me and goes, because I'm black. And I remember in that moment, like I'm so inexperienced as a reporter wearing a suit in that spot. Like I'm like, oh shit. And I accidentally sort of played it perfectly. I didn't jump in and ask a follow-up. I just went, that's it. And then that led to him going on a rant about racism in sports, about how the black athlete is only recognized if he's talking trash and doing all this stuff. You can put his face on a milk carton and no one would know who he is, blah, blah, blah. I knew in that moment I had something that could get me elevated because of this. It's crazy how things work back then at ESPN where, you just think, oh my God, that soundbite's great. Let's just email it to somebody and we'll get it up on SportsCenter. Unfortunately, it took me 4 days. It took me a long weekend to even get copy of the video from the camera guy who then took off that whole weekend unannounced. But I ended up getting the copy of that video. I ended up, using my connections and getting it on the desk of somebody who worked for SportsCenter. And that night on the 6 p.m. SportsCenter, and I told everybody in my life to tune in which they didn't show my face at all, but mentioned my name. They played the audio of me teeing up the question, played his response, and then brought in Stephen A. Smith live right after that to break down the race elements and whether Bernard is, whether he's right, whether he's got a point. And simultaneously, I went to the news desk and pitched it as a story, and I wrote it as a headline, and it did a shit ton of traffic and was huge. And I'm thinking, like, this is how smart Hopkins is. That fight would have gotten zero attention on ESPN, maybe even the result of it not even getting a highlight, if something didn't happen to change that narrative. I had never communicated at any point to Bernard that I was doing this, but he just knew what needed to be done to put some light on the fight, while simultaneously I'm trying to use the situation to, maneuver myself up the lane. And I remember seeing him years later when he came to ESPN about 2016-ish, and I'm going, hey, Bernard, remember that time with that thing? I go, did you know what I was trying to do? He goes, of course I did. He goes, tell me what? Tell me this. Did they talk about me that week after that interview on SportsCenter? I'm like, yeah, they previewed the fight. They brought in Stephen A. Smith. They did all this stuff. He's like, would they have talked about me at all? He goes, no. He goes, and he just walks away. And I'm like, man, guy's brilliant. And so that was a great moment for me to step up, but also to realize that that guy was a true genius in what he was doing. I don't know. That was a big moment for me. It might not have translated through to the story, but I appreciate your time. Two Chinks, that was a good interview. I remember it. Never knew that was BC. Really cool story. Yeah, shout out to Bernard in that regard. I didn't even have to meet him in the men's room at all, which is great. And by the way, luckily they didn't put me on TV. I had no idea how to match a suit. I had like a suit pattern with a shirt with a pattern, with a tie with an alternate pattern, with a thing in my pocket with an alternate pattern. I look like a mess. It's probably why they were like, this guy's not showing up on TV. This is absolutely ridiculous. All right, let's get a couple more. Let's get out of here. MMA Fanatic back at it. At the time, what did you make of Lampley's bang bang call in such a lackluster Pacquiao versus Clottey fight? Yes, that was a shame, that whole event, because remember, that was supposed to be Mayweather Pacquiao at AT&T Stadium in Arlington. And it didn't, the deal didn't happen, and they had to scramble, and they got Clottey, who was relatively close to having beaten Miguel Cotto in that back and forth, very tough fight. Did he? Yeah, he got the win over Cotto, right? Yeah, I'm not making that up. And then, of course, we all know Clottey for 12 rounds decided not to try, hid behind his guard, and took the multi-millions there as Pacquiao just lit him up, but didn't give us the succession in that run of De La Hoya, Hatton, Cotto, Margarito, right? Like this was kind of like not a lame performance. He tried his best, but he didn't have a willing dance partner. And then I thought that was really one of the most out-of-pocket moments from Jim ever, where it was just so weird as Pacquiao's lighting up the guard of Clottey with 14 unanswered punches, and Jim's like, bang, bang, try and stop me now. Bang, bang, like just giving this whole, like he's, in the middle of coitus and being his own narrator or something. It was really weird. I remember in the moment being like, Jim has jumped the shark. He has jumped the shark. This is him just free balling and freestyling. Like, this is not work, but it does not work. But, it would turn out that it's a very memorable moment in the canon of Lampley that sticks out like a sore thumb, but we also kind of like it. Bang, bang, bang. Yeah, yeah, bang. You know, you can imagine like the boss in Office Space, you know, as he's like, you know what I'm going with that. You know what I'm going with that. Okay. Two Chakes, correct me here. Cotto beat, okay, yes. Okay, this was Madison Square Garden. Cotto beat Clotty by split decision. Most thought Clotty had won. Cotto fought real dirty. Yeah, if you remember, he picked up Clotty and slammed him down on his shoulder and hurt Clotty's leg when he threw him down. So Clotty fought most of the, hurt the leg. Thank you, Two Chinks. So that fight was a bit of a brawl. It was fun. And interestingly enough, people always ask me what the best interview I've ever done was. What's your favorite interview? And it's odd that it connects to this Naked Gun story about Liam Neeson of Taken, because did I ever tell you that story? No, that's also a long story. Anyway, yeah, throw back a bottle of beer, Sandine. Zoot Suit Riot. I won't tell you the long Liam Neeson story, but Liam Neeson had told me that him and his son sat ringside for that fight, and his son would not stop talking for weeks about how Clotty got screwed. I knew somebody got screwed in there. Pam Anderson currently getting screwed. Thank you. All right. We did it. We did a couple hours here. We had a good time. I think. Thank you. Thank you. We love the box. We want to save the box. Tomorrow we go inside the box. Noon Eastern time. Okay. All right. What do you got, Brody? BC, are you seeing the news? They're saying Gilbert Arenas has been arrested today for running an illegal gambling ring. I did not see that at all. I love me some Gil, man. I just threw away my 2007 Gilbert Arenas Adidas All-Star sneakers that I've been playing basketball in for 20 years, you know? Those Adidas, okay, this is real. Former NBA star Gilbert Arenas and suspected Israeli crime figure were arrested today on federal indictment alleging they operated a legal gambling business in which high-stakes poker games were played at an Encino mansion that, oh boy. You know what's tough is I had just seen that Netflix documentary that I'm sure a lot of you had about the gun incident between him and Javaris Crittenden, which changed both of their careers and the trajectory of their lives. And I actually was really touched, even though I had been noticing Gilbert's sort of rebranding as a podcaster. I was actually really touched at the maturity he showed in that and talking about how much, you know, how different he used to be. But yeah, this is rough. And didn't Marcus Morris or his brother or one of the two just screw those casinos out of money? Yeah, there we go. Shout out. Oh, thank you, Sandine. Shout out to Encino Man, one of the most ridiculous movies of all time. Shout out to Pauly Shore. There it is. All right, that's it. No, I'll answer Beatles questions because that's how I get down. Brody's really, you know, he's becoming a Chad All-Star, this guy. You know what I mean? He could be a nuisance, but, you know, lately he's been an MVP. BC, last time I asked you your favorite song of Abbey Road, yes, I said Something. Although really, I just want to say the medley at the end or that moment where Polythene Pan becomes She Came In Through the Bathroom Window. It's like an ejaculation of sound, if you will. I don't know if you do that. And now I'll ask you your favorite off of Revolver. I always like She Said, She Said. Revolver is arguably the Beatles' best album because it is the precursor to their full-on psychedelic all-in Sgt. Pepper album. Yet it's still, I mean, that window of 1965, 66, where, like I said earlier, where rock and pop music was so heavily influenced by the combination of Indian raga music and psychedelic sound and all that I think that's what makes Revolver so cool. That if there actually is, even though I score Abbey Road ahead of it, if there is an album better than Abbey Road in the Beatles catalog, it would have to be Revolver, because it's just so eclectically awesome and has like this edge to it, this sort of weird vibe to it that's so perfect in ways that, like, look, Sgt. Pepper is epic and it means so much and it meant so much at the time, but it doesn't always play back to its full strength. Sometimes it's a little too oddball psychedelic. Like, I don't necessarily, you know, I've talked about this before. Even though Magical Mystery Tour and Sgt. Pepper are 5-star albums, they're almost my least favorite kind of psychedelic rock. It's like the Beatles kind of Walmarted psychedelic rock to a certain degree and cheesed it up. This is me talking. I'm a super fan. All right. But Revolver was when you had the hints of it, and it was perfect the way they blended in. She Said is an absolutely fantastic song. This was in the midst of them really getting deep into drugs, you know, the experimental, going from weed to beginning ready to cross over into LSD. And so many of those songs had that sort of tinge of drugness to them. You know, they're all based on stories of parties. You know, I think She Said is based upon Peter Fonda was all high and he was mouthing off and trying to act like you know, he's never been born line, even though it's She Said, it was really he. You know, he's acting like he's invented the world and they were pissed off about it, so they wrote a song about it but mixed it up. There's a few of those on that record that are awesome, but I gotta say that my favorite song on that record is "And Your Bird Can Sing," and it's such, you know, and at the surface, it's kind of a throwaway track in some ways, but it's not. It's upbeat. I think it's some of George's best, even though there's not a traditional long guitar solo. There's a couple, you know, phrases that George plays really fast. That's almost like an in between solo between the verses, and it's some of his best inventive guitar work. It's a very sunny track. I'm going to pick that one, but I love She Said, Dr. Robert. I love a lot of the tracks on there. I mean, even Tomorrow Never Knows, which was like the harbinger of the Sgt. Pepper to come, the true harbinger, the final song that's just wacky and weird, man. It almost still holds up today. So there we go. There it is right there. Whoop. There it is. Okay. Mahalo to everybody, including the Big Papa, Key Papa. See you at the Love Shack, brada. That's it. That's it. I'm Only Sleeping still jam. Yeah, still bangs too. Definitely. All right. My name's BC. I do this every week, maybe to my own detriment. I don't know, but I just like connecting with you guys. Thank you for your super chats today. Thank you for the friendship. That's what we did. We talked about the podcast. Okay. Luckily, we're not talking about any lawsuits. Hope you're going to have a great week. And stay cool. All right. What was that movie where they said that? Oh yeah, Beautiful Girls at the end, where he's like, "Stay cool, man. Stay cool." Right? Yeah. That was a little Kev. Right? Okay. No one knows what I'm talking about. Peace. We out of here. Maybe we should close with the best outro track going in podcast today. All right, hit it.